We gather today as members and supporters of the Charleston branch of the NAACP to address the $18 million financial crisis in the Charleston County School District. We've waited to see how the district would respond to that budgetary shortfall and now feel that it's time to speak out about three specific concerns. Our first concern is that while the district has agreed to both regular and forensic financial audits, those audits have not been completed. The forensic audit in particular will show whether there was any wrongdoing in the handling of the district's finances. We are concerned that when Chief Financial Officer Michael Bobby resigned, so that in his word, he would not be the source of controversy, he was given a handsome financial severance package. Since the results of the financial audits are not yet available, the school district may have compensated an employee who played a role in the financial crisis. We also find it to be outrageous that a school board dealing with a financial crisis richly compensated an employee who may have played a role in the crisis. We call upon the Charleston County School Board to suspend the implementation of Mr. Bobby's severance compensation package until the completion of the forensic audit to assure that he bears no responsibility for the problem. Should he be found responsible, then he should not be paid for messing things up before resigning. Our second concern is that pending plans to deal with the shortfall may include a reduction in force and the laying off of employees, especially since one of the district's charter schools received preferential funding that aggravated the financial crisis. We are concerned that the district employees who played no role in creating the budget problem may be fired to correct the problem, that schools that are already struggling may be forced to face new struggles to fix a financial problem that they did not create. We call upon the Charleston County School Board and Superintendent to suspend any actions to correct the budgetary shortfall until there is clarity on the reason for the shortfall, and to see that those who suffer consequences will be those who played a hand in the shortfall. Our third concern is that the district's auditing firm sounded the alarm about financial accountability problems for years before those problems became critical. That means that the school board chairperson, Cindy Coates, the board's audit and finance committee, and the entire membership of the board knew of the problem but took no steps to fix it. President Harry Truman famously said of his responsibility in office that the buck stops here. In this case, the buck stops with board chair Cindy Coates. We call upon Ms. Coates and other school board members who want to do the right thing to clear the slate, resign from office, and let the people go to the polls and have their say as to who should lead the Charleston County School District. True accountability calls for no less than that. Thank you. We'll take questions.
Is there a priority in terms of, you mentioned those three things, Doc, then I presume the first thing is the reconsideration of Michael Bobby's departure compensation. Is that correct?
Well, we've listed that as the first concern. All three of these concerns, to me, have equal value in terms of what needs to be dealt with. How they facilitate doing it, we haven't, at least I can let Reverend Darby address that, but I'm not sure that we have prioritized do this first, do that next. But I think we've had enough information being shared publicly, even though we haven't had complete transparency, to let us know that there definitely seems to be a problem with how the Michael Bobby issue was handled, particularly since he was the chief financial officer.
Have you had a chance to talk to the new superintendent about this particular issue here?
Absolutely.
Okay. And What was your conversation like with her, and were you happy with what
Well,
she had to say?
not in detail when I said whether or not I was happy. I was happy with the fact that it was moving forward. One of the conversations we had and was really concerned that there would be an audit that did not include a forensic audit. We have reason to believe it goes beyond just simple mismanagement. We really believe that a forensic audit would be the only way to go. Whether or not the superintendent what we're looking at in terms of a new superintendent. The superintendent is hired by the board. It's governed by this superintendent answers to the chair and the board. So I think that what we're looking at from all information, historical data, is that this has been long before this superintendent.
Right, that's why I was asking if you had a chance, because it seems like she's just getting her feet wet. Here she has dealt with this big blow.
Exactly right. So far, I think that her handling of it, in terms of her being transparent to the community. She's given out some information now, but I do believe that the board has been pretty quiet on, who is really responsible. I think Michael Bobby's name has been obviously left out the conversation for far too many, particularly when he had elected to be department head of so many things. If you can't manage the one thing that you've been hired to do, then why are you reaching out and volunteering for all of the other positions, including interim superintendent and some other positions, I think, that has been so noted in the news.
Scott, when you say that the problems go beyond simple mismanagement, what exactly are you alluding to there? I know there has been some discussions that the board doesn't believe, for example, any fraud or corruption happened in regards to deficit.
If the board doesn't believe there's no fraud, then the board must have done an audit themselves, because how do you know that when you're talking $18 million? I'm thinking that if there's fraud, there can be fraud in more ways than one. If monies are spent or contracts are done, there's a number of ways that things should be happening. I think we should leave that pretty much and let the forensic audit tell us what the true story is. When we said we have reason to believe, I think this goes beyond we just underestimated the amount of children that would be coming in the school district. How do you underestimate when you already had the right numbers and decide as you're doing the budget, oh, we'll change this number? So I think that's fraudulent to even do that when you know that you will have X amount of new students coming in, but let's pretend that we don't.
Now, you don't want any salaries to be cut or anyone to be fired because it wasn't a part of the problem. So how would you suggest that the school district was about resolving this deficit?
Well, because I'm not part of that mix of how they do it, I don't have the expertise to tell them how we feel strongly, and I'm going to let someone else have some conversation as well. We feel strongly that far too often the people who create the problems are the ones that are sitting back now say, did I do all of this? And then we have the schools who have not benefited. We're still asking the question. I want you guys to ask it too. What private school, what charter school got the money that nobody wants to talk about? I said we need to be clear on what happened to the funds. We're not talking about the expectation we didn't get all the tax money we expected. We're talking about funds that have actually been spent and where they were spent. Those are what we're saying. Those schools now, if you've given money to the charter school, but now some of the smaller schools like the Kaleidoscope program, where a lot of children who are underserved were benefiting from that program simply because it's an after-school program and it helps with the issue of parents having somewhere for the children to be. Those are the programs the first to go. Anything that looks social usually is the first thing to go. We're not going to cut the classroom. Well, in order to teach, all of the other things are supporting the ability of those teachers to teach those children. So when we begin to cut that, but yet we're looking for, not only do we give him his salary because he's resigned, we need to deal with that issue of resignation that we so freely allow people to resign when you have a problem with them. If you don't have a legitimate problem, and this is where equal opportunity comes in. If these people don't deserve to be fired, stop firing them. And if they deserve to be fired, fire them. Don't give them a golden parachute and let them just leave. So that's where we've got some problem. If you don't have enough money to take care of the Kaleidoscope program, that's just one. I'm just saying, how do we have money to give him when he wants to resign? And not only that, can we give him benefits? Those are the questions that really need to be delved into. And the reason we're having the press conference, because when questions are asked of us, well, what is the NAACP saying about it? Well, this is what we're saying about it.
And you're asking for Cindy Von Coates to resign then also?
I think Cindy Von Coates has done enough in her tenure to show that obviously she is in the wrong job, whether elected or not. If folks have the confidence to elect you and you still don't perform, or you continue to do things that are egregious to the entity you serve, then maybe she needs to say, you know, I have not done a good job. Because yes, the buck does stop there with her.
What about other council members? I mean, everyone seems like to be
Everyone is culpable. Cindy is at the head. We can go for the arms and feet, but we really need to deal with the head, and the rest of it go with it.
Reverend Darby, was there anything else that you wanted to add about this and kind of where we go from here and what you're hoping for? I mean, it seems like the superintendent's moving forward here, but she wants to vet everything and bring in these outside folks here to go through the paperwork.
The overarching thing that I hope got across is that the forensic audit has not yet been completed. If I bounce a check, then I go back, I look at my figures, I try to figure out what happened, and I put funds in to make sure that that doesn't happen again. This is not a bounce check. This is gross financial mismanagement. This is money leaking from multiple places. This is underestimating figures for things like student population and then going back after the fact. This is folks ignoring warnings and doing things. And so it's serious enough that before you start to correct it, you first have to figure out what went wrong. Forensic audit will say what went wrong, who was involved, and then you can take an informed decision rather than making a knee-jerk decision. Anything else right now would be a knee-jerk decision.
And Stephen? And Reverend Lewis? Okay. We're done? All right. Anyone, any other question?
Is there anything else that you would like to add? Kind of where do we go from here now? You've issued a statement now, Dot, and where do we go from here? Are you going to hear back from the school district?
I would not expect, they haven't been that forthcoming. What I'd like to see is for the chair to go ahead and resign and take some of her cohorts with her. That's what I'd like to see. That won't fix our problem because, as Reverend Darby said, we're still waiting for the audit. And until that happens, we really don't know. We don't just come and ask for someone's resignation or to step down because it's the popular thing to do. We really believe that given all of the backdrop of all that's happened with the process of hiring of the superintendent, all the indifference to the minority community, I think Chair Coates give us every reason to believe that we can do better and we should do better.